can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by friend of the channel, Luke Gattell, who we have spoken to a few times before over the years. Luke, thank you for joining me. This is just kind of like we're starting to do these roundup calls whenever there's a big weekend of boxing, whether it's in the UK or the US or both, which is what we saw this weekend. So here to kind of to chew the fat with you and to analyze a couple of things. We'll start in Philadelphia. Jaron Ennis, one round job against Usima Lima. We'll let you run with it. Give us your thoughts on the fight. It only lasted 2 minutes, but what did you make of it?
So to me, I'm probably different. I thought Lima was a tough cookie. I thought that he's coming in off underdog wins. I thought his fight against Aaron McKenna was actually a hard fought bout. I feel like I'm a sicko, so like I'd watch that. So to me, this performance felt very much like a Roy Jones performance, where he fought someone that I thought was very credible, a top-rated contender, and the minute he knocks him out in impressive fashion, people go, "Who the freak is this guy? He needs to fight someone better." To me, this kind of cemented Boots as a top-tier fighter, that he made a highly rated contender look like a nobody.
Yeah, for sure. I think, look, there were some people basically saying, expressing disappointment at the fight, but it wasn't just a case that Lima's just not very good or wasn't what he was made out to be. It was just a fantastic performance by Jaron Ennis. Um, what did you what do you make of the situation now? Because I think all the talk post fight was about Jaron Ennis wanting to face Virgil Ortiz next. Virgil Ortiz has a fight not too far away against Erickson Lubin, a fight he's expected to win, but I wouldn't say it was kind of a guarantee that he's going to win that fight. Um, do you see that fight taking place next for Jaron Ennis, Luka? Do you think that's actually going to happen? Do you think it's promoter talk? What was your make of all of that?
Well, first off, like I'm not in love with the idea of let's talk about another fighter who has a hard fight because
Mm.
like that's just we've seen that time and time. Like Lubin can punch. Lubin's got a lot of ability. I'd like to see it next because I think we've been talking about this fight as hardcore for like maybe I don't know. I think talking about this fight back in 2018, 2019. So it's been kind of and then back then that was the conversation, oh, they're too young. It'll make more money now. And now we're still hearing resistance to it. I'd love to see the fight, but let's not fall in love with just that matchup. We got good fights. Backrum is a great fight. Jesus Ramos Jr. is a great fight. Xander Zayas is a good fight. I'd like to see this division fight each other. So if that fight's not possible, the thing with Ennis is he's so friggin' good. I only want to see it, and it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because I only want to see him with the best because he is the best. So when he does these type of fights, there's a part of me that's like let down because I want to see can he do that to a top guy? Because that's how special he looked. So I don't think he needs to fight Ortiz next, but he needs to fight someone where we all go, oh, that's a guy. He needs to fight one of these top guys. If it's not Ortiz, it's Beckram. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I hope so. I just think Jaron Ennis, he's look, he's been around for a while now. He achieved great things. We know he's a top fighter. He's 35 and 28 years old. Now, 2026 is the year that at the end of that year he should be considered as a top pound for pound guy, kind of fighter of the year. We should be having those discussions potentially about him if he wins those big fights. But as you mentioned, 154 has the potential to be a fantastic division, doesn't it? But yeah, obviously we kind of got news about Sebastian Fundora and Keith Thurman's fight being postponed until we don't know when early this week, which is frustrating. So hopefully the next 12 months is a big 12 months for that division. I want to ask you, Luke, I think kind of one of the lines Eddie Hearn did what Eddie Hearn did last night, kind of went off in a bit of a tangent, which he's very good at. It's kind of his job to do so. One of his lines was he thinks that Gironninas beats anyone at 154, 160, or 168. We've just seen somebody get a big win at 168 in Terence Crawford. Is that a fight? Is that fight dead for you? Can you see that fight possibly happening? Because I feel like you've got Jaron Ennis, who is now kind of arguably at his peak now. Crawford's coming off his best ever win at 168, despite not being a 168 fighter. Could we see these guys fight at kind of 160 in a year's time? Is there any possibility of that happening for you?
So for me, that fight is completely on the Boots' team. They've got to push the issue to cultivate fans to think that that's an exciting fight. Crawford has never shown us an unwillingness to take the best fights and the most interesting fights, but he has no obligation to fighting young up and comers. I think that it's Boots has to beat like the Beckrams and the Virgil Ortizes and make people go, what would this fight look like? Two of the modern up and comer who's awesome versus Crawford, who's an all-time great. To me, the responsibility of making that matchup is Boots taking interesting fights to forcing that fight to happen. I think that Crawford, what do you think? At most, he has two fights left in him. He probably will fight over the course of 3 years, maybe 2.5 years. So if the fight were to happen, Ennis has to take these fights that we want to see, and the public has to demand to see them.
Interesting stuff. Like, yeah, it's just, it just feels like talk around that fight has kind of come and gone over the years, but I'm still in the party that I would love to see that. I would love to see that fight. So we'll see. As you say, like it's probably not going to happen next year, but yeah, we shall see. We'll move from Philadelphia to Sheffield, Luke, just kind of covering the two main events in the US and the UK. Makhmudov and Dave Allen, which was kind of billed as a 50-50 fight, according to the bookmakers. A lot of eyebrows were raised when the fight was announced, saying kind of, is this a good fight for Dave Allen? Is it a step too far? It's a dangerous fight. And Makhmudov ended up clearly winning the fight, not really dropping many rounds at all. What did you make of what you saw?
I thought that in a weird way and in a losing effort, Dave Allen proved something to himself. He almost stopped him at the end of that one round. Makhmudov had the holding penalties. It seems like years of not living as a pro athlete are always going to hold Dave back. You know, you see the talent. To me, the big thing with Allen is it's like no matter how hard he trains, he's gotten older and it looks like he has to pace himself. He's unable. The big thing I look at, right, is like people talk about a jab, a jab, a jab. What's a jab really is conditioning. To throw a jab a lot, you have to be in a really good shape. And oftentimes, being in good shape isn't just having one good camp. It's what did you do for 4 to 5 years? How did you train your body for these moments? And it felt like at times in this fight, whether he was physically able or he was didn't trust himself, he was unable to jab and he was walking into Makhmudov looking for like the pressure to create the moments. And Makhmudov was just simply able to outpoint him by being active. But I thought that, Dave is an underdog. I think that the people of the United Kingdom or where he's from have really liked this underdog story. And I think that the nightmare didn't happen where he got outclassed. It's like he had a gutsy performance, he had his moments, but he clearly lost. And I think that that's kind of a victory because he was looked at as a journeyman by most people. And I thought that he showed that he could compete, but maybe not win against a top opponent.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like based on what you've said, it's kind of I think it's you can make a comparison to Tyson Fury with Dave Allen in the sense that Tyson Fury kind of retired, went off the rails, and then came back and achieved fantastic things. Dave Allen did retire from the sport a few years ago, and he did kind of come back, and he was kind of fighting very infrequently. He returned to kind of small hall shows, fighting kind of front of less than 1,000 people in 4 rounders against journeymen. Took fights at late notice as that he's done in the past, and I just think to go from that to fighting in front of I think between 9 and 10,000 people on Saturday night in the main event, that's a great story for me. And I think although he didn't win the fight, it was a big. That's one of the biggest fights in terms of people in attendance that you're going to see in the UK this year. So I think that's something special and it's something to be proud of. And I think Dave Allen, we'll see what happens next. I just think it's a case of I think he maybe just needs to go up against guys who are his level, and I hope that happens next. What? Yeah, go ahead, Luke.
I was gonna say it seems like he's built an emotional connection with the fans,
Mm,
and that like oftentimes like winning fixes everything, but people want it. You know who I'd compare him to in America is like if Broner came back, was got a win. I think a lot of people want to see Broner do well after all that he's been through. And I think Dave Allen, it's like the standard is maybe lower, but the story is amazing because normally when guys with some talent and potential, like you bring up Fury, but he has like all these physical gifts most people don't have. Like he's massive, he's fast. So even when he had depression and didn't live like a fighter, he still has like a leg up on people because he's
mm.
got some. I think that what intrigues me about Dave is he's kind of like your normal, if not small, heavyweight who then made a return, didn't give up on himself, and has been like extremely humble through the whole process. And there's something kind of endearing that you want to he's like an underdog sports franchise that every now and then wins, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I just no, look, I think people want to see him do well. People want to see him win. I think I would love to see Dave Allen fight for the British title. I think that's a dream for him, and I think he's good enough to win a British title. Um, no, so we'll see. What do you make of Makhmudov, Luke? 'Cause we've seen him. Look, I find him quite exciting to watch because in some ways he's one of the biggest punchers in the division, but in some ways he kind of has very obvious flaws. But yeah, what's your opinion? What did you make of his performance against Dave Allen and him as a fighter generally?
Well, I think that Mark Ramsey is one of the smartest people in boxing. So when you see Mark Ramsey in a corner, you should always be scared. And I think that Makhmudov doesn't win this fight if Mark Ramsey wasn't in his corner. It felt like Mark Ramsey came up with a great. I mean, Mark Ramsey's probably the trainer of the year that no one's talking about. Christian and Billy, all these top fighters that are having great performances, Makhmudov, and it's like because he's not, kind of asking for it. That always bugs me about coaches. If a coach doesn't just does their job and doesn't like go front and center, people are like, oh, that guy's good. It's like it always feels like people kind of have to campaign for the award. Makhmudov to me is deeply flawed. He's a big puncher. He kind of gives away when he's hurt. He has a lot of flaws. But I think working with Mark Ramsey, they're able to maximize his ability. So they're able to get the most out of him. And I think that he loses to Dave Allen if Ramsey's not in his corner. I think he's always going to be a guy who young up and comers expect to beat. And I think he's always capable of beating an up and a comer. I think his best position in the sport is kind of fighting guys like Hergovic,
Yeah.
where we don't know where they're going and to try to make a run from there. So I kind of see him where he's not the elite of the division, but he's not a gatekeeper just yet. He's
Mm.
kind of in a middle tier where we're figuring out where he is because like I don't know what Hergovic is currently. And I think that that's what Makhmudov is. I will say that this was his most mature performance I've ever seen him fight. And I think it actually surprised Dave the way he fought.
Yeah, and it just kind of there were a couple of times when he got looked like he got rocked, and it was just nice. Although like I would have loved to have seen Dave Allen win last night. It was nice to see Makhmudov prove people wrong as well because it felt like he A held it together and B I felt like he was maybe struggling those last 2 or 3 rounds when Allen was kind of needed to throw everything at him, and again just held it just held it together, and it takes heart and skill to do that in an environment where everyone is desperate to see you get beat, basically as well. That's not an easy thing to do. So I'll give him credit for that as well. What do you make of the suggestions, rumors, stories that Makhmudov could fight Anthony Joshua next?
I don't know. Like I'm not the matchmaker, so I mean, if from a fight standpoint, it's dangerous. Like I mean, I've always been critical of Joshua because I feel like his path to where he got was a lot easier than a lot of other people. Like there was a big machine behind him, there was big backing, and it's like when he comes back, more than likely there's going to be an opponent in front of him that's somewhat vulnerable that gives him the best chance. Yes, Makhmudov might kind of fit that, but he also can punch, and he also showed that he can be disciplined. And Joshua's shown that he doesn't really like guys that punch really hard. And he also doesn't like guys that stick to a game plan when he's punching. And I always go back to the Joseph Parker fight, which kind of annoys people. But I really thought that that was kind of the end of the elite Joshua because Parker was parrying his power shots and jabbing with him, and I felt like that kind of took a little bit of his confidence. So like I get it. I think that Dave Allen would have been the ideal choice for Joshua. I wouldn't even be shocked if Dave still gets the Joshua fight because it's kind of a what Joshua would need. But Joshua was getting to a point where how much more does he have in the tank? Like you're taking a whole year off late in your career. Gut feeling Makhmudov fight. I mean, it's okay, but it's a pretty dangerous fight for Joshua at this point. What do you think?
I think what we're being told is that what Joshua wants to do next year is have these long-awaited fights against Tyson Fury, but he needs to have one or maybe even two. I don't know if you call them warm-up fights, comeback fights, what you ever want to call it. And I think that to fight ARSLANBEK Makhmudov in one of those sort of fights is too much of a risk for Joshua, basically. I just think Makhmudov I think he punches too hard, and I just think when you've been at the ring for over a year and you've got this pot of gold at the end, which is potentially a Tyson Fury fight or potentially another big fight as well for Anthony Joshua, Makhmudov is too much of a risk.